The sea outside our family's vacation home always seemed to know when we were coming. The waves would soften, the salt air gentler, as if it remembered us. Or maybe it only remembered her. My sister, Leela. Growing up, she was the golden daughter, the one my parents spoke about with a kind of reverence. "She's special, Ethan," my father would say, his voice tinged with pride. "You'll understand one day." I never quite did. Leela was beautiful, charming, and knew how to make a room orbit around her. I was quieter, the kind of son who built things rather than talked about them. While she danced through life, I worked, fixing things, handling the accounts, making sure the beach house didn't crumble into the sand. When our mother died, everything fragile in our family seemed to finally crack. My father became smaller somehow, not physically, but in presence. He spent long afternoons staring out the same window she used to sit by. Leela drifted in and out, claiming she was too busy with her career moves in the city, while I stayed behind, the one keeping everything intact. The vacation home became my project, my quiet way of preserving what little we had left of her. The scent of jasmine in the hall, the laughter echoing faintly in the kitchen. Every month, I paid the bills, replaced the leaking pipes, fixed the dock when storms tore through it. My father thanked me once, years ago, then stopped mentioning it altogether, as if it was just expected. Family duty, I told myself. That was enough. Until one Sunday dinner. We sat around the oak table that had seen decades of birthdays, arguments, and apologies. My father cleared his throat, looking almost nervous, which was rare for him. "I have some news," he said. "I've finalized the family trust." Leela's eyes lit up like she already knew. Mine narrowed. "A trust?" I asked. "For both of us." He hesitated. That pause told me everything before he even spoke. "It's primarily for Leela," he said. "She's had a harder time finding stability, and I want to make sure she's taken care of." I blinked, unsure if I'd heard right. "Primarily," I repeated. "You mean only for her?" He avoided my gaze. "Ethan, you're doing well. You've got a steady job, savings, and well, Leela's always needed a little more help." A laugh escaped me, bitter and disbelieving. "You mean she's needed rescuing from her own messes?" Leela's voice cut in, syrupy sweet. "Don't be petty, Ethan. Dad just wants to do what's fair." "Fair," I echoed, my jaw tightening. Fair would have been remembering who's been paying the property tax on this family home for the last 6 years. My father's eyes hardened, the way they used to when I questioned him as a kid. "That's not the point. You're responsible, Ethan. Leela needs a cushion." For a moment, I wanted to argue, to lay out every receipt, every late night fixing his roof, while she posted vacation photos online, but something inside me cracked instead. Quiet, clean, final. I nodded slowly. "Understood, Dad. Lila needs the trust. I don't." Leela smiled, smug and radiant in her victory. My father looked relieved. They both thought the conversation had ended. But in that silence, something else began, a decision forming, sharp as sea glass. The next morning, I stood at the shore, watching the waves rise and fall against the wooden posts of the house. The same sea that had always welcomed us, now whispered differently. For the first time, I felt like it wasn't my home anymore. And soon I decided, it wouldn't be. I tried to pretend nothing had changed after that dinner. I still called my father every Sunday, still asked if he needed groceries, still checked the weather before the next storm rolled toward the coast. But something inside me had shifted. Every conversation felt like I was talking through glass, my words echoing back at me, hollow and unheard. Leela didn't help. She called one morning, all breezy laughter and condescension, the kind of tone that always made me feel 12 again. "Hey, Ethan! Dad said you were still covering the utilities for the beach house. That's so sweet of you." "I've been doing that for years, Leela." "Well," she said, a smile in her voice, "know that the trust is official. Maybe we should look at some upgrades. I was thinking of repainting the deck and redoing the guest rooms. You could handle the bills for that, right?" I gripped the phone tighter. "You do realize the trust isn't mine, right?" "Oh, come on. It's our family home," she said, stressing the word "our" like it meant something to her. "Besides, you make good money. You've always been the dependable one. That's your thing. Dependable. Reliable. Invisible." I hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of waves outside my apartment window reminded me of every repair I'd done on that house. Every nail, every bucket of paint, Every penny spent just to keep it from falling apart. All for a family that had decided I didn't deserve a single brick of it. The next weekend, I drove down to the coast. The house stood there, still and quiet in the afternoon light. It was beautiful. I couldn't deny it. The same white shutters my mother had chosen. The old swing on the porch. The faint smell of salt and sunscreen embedded in the wood. But it didn't feel like ours anymore. It felt like a place I was only renting, paying to keep alive for people who had long stopped valuing it. My father was sitting in his favorite chair on the porch, a glass of sweet tea sweating in his hand. "I didn't expect you today," he said, half smiling. "Yeah. Just checking the place before summer." He nodded. "Good man. You've always been responsible. Leela could learn a thing or two from you." The compliment, if it was one, stung. "Dad," I began carefully, "about the trust fund." He sighed, setting his glass down. "Ethan, please don't start that again. You're not a child." "I'm not," I said. "But I'm also not blind. You gave her security. You gave me, what, responsibility." He looked at me with that mix of irritation and wariness I knew too well. "You don't need help, son. You never have. You'll be fine. You always are." And that was it. The sentence that finally broke something I'd spent 30 years holding together. I nodded, slow and deliberate. "You're right," I said softly. "I always am." That night, I drove back to the city, the image of the house shrinking in my rearview mirror until it was just a speck of white against the water. I didn't tell them that the property taxes were due next week. I didn't tell them about the plumbing that would need replacing soon, or the termites eating through the back deck. Let them find out on their own, I thought. For the first time in years, I slept soundly. Over the next few months, I stopped writing the checks. The maintenance requests went unanswered. The caretaker I'd hired was dismissed. My father called once, confused about a late bill, but I told him politely it wasn't my responsibility anymore. If the house belonged to them, then so did the cost of keeping it alive. By autumn, the silence between us was complete, heavy, but strangely freeing. And beneath that silence, a quiet satisfaction began to grow. Not revenge, not yet. Just the small, steady peace that comes when you finally stop bleeding for people who never noticed you were hurt. By the time summer came back around, I had almost forgotten about the house. Almost. Every now and then, I'd see an email about an unpaid utility, or a voicemail from a maintenance company wondering if I still wanted seasonal cleaning. I ignored them all. The waves would take care of it, I thought. The sea had a way of reclaiming what people no longer deserved. It was Leela who broke the silence first. Her call came one humid afternoon, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Ethan, what happened to the beach house?" I leaned back in my chair. "What do you mean?" It's a mess," she said, nearly shouting. "The paint's peeling, the roof's leaking, and there's mold everywhere. Dad and I got here this morning, and it smells like rot." "The dock's half gone!" "Didn't you? Weren't you supposed to take care of this?" "No," I said calmly. "I stopped paying for maintenance months ago." There was silence, then a sharp inhale. "You what?" "You heard me. I figured since Dad's trust is for you, the house should be too. Congratulations, Leela. It's all yours, mold and all." "You can't just abandon it," she snapped. "It's our family home." "Funny," I said, a bitter smile curling my lips. "That's exactly what I thought about the trust." Oh, she hung up on me. An hour later, my father called. His voice was tight, angry in a way I hadn't heard since I was a teenager. "Ethan, what the hell do you think you're doing? That house has been in our family for decades." "I know," I said softly. "That's why I took care of it for so long. Then why stop now?" I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of years pressing down. "Because, Dad, you made it clear it wasn't mine to care for. You decided what family meant when you signed those papers. I'm just respecting that." He was silent for a long time before muttering, "You're being childish." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I'm just tired of paying for a family that only remembers me when the bills are due." He didn't respond. He didn't need to. The silence was louder than anything he could have said. Weeks passed after that call. I didn't hear from either of them, but through whispers in the small coastal town, I heard stories about how the house was falling apart, about how Leela was trying to hire contractors on short notice, about my father's embarrassment when neighbors noticed the state of the once pristine property. Part of me felt guilty, but another part, the part that had swallowed years of being overlooked, felt something closer to peace. I spent my weekends working on my own home now, a small apartment in the city that smelled of coffee and pine wood, quiet and mine alone. No ghosts, no expectations. Sometimes I'd dream of the sea. In those dreams, the house was still standing, but empty. My mother's laughter echoed faintly, mixing with the waves. I'd wake up with a hollow ache, but it wasn't pain anymore. Just distance. One evening, I got a short email from my father. No greeting, no sign off. Just one line, "We'll handle things from here." I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. Handle things, I thought. That's all I'd ever done. Handled things. And now, finally, they would have to. That summer, I didn't visit the beach even once. I told myself I didn't need to see the wreckage. Maybe it was better that way. The sea had taken back what was hers, and I had taken back myself, respect. The silence between us grew thicker, but beneath it, something else began to stir. Not bitterness, not anger, but a quiet readiness. Because deep down, I knew life had its tides, and one day, they'd come back to me. Not for money, but for mercy. And when they did, I'd decide whether to let them drown or teach them to swim. 3 years passed before I saw the beach house again. By then, the sea had done what I couldn't. It had humbled it. The once white walls were streaked with salt stains, the porch sagged, and weeds pushed through the cracks in the path my mother once lined with shells. It wasn't ruins, not yet, but it was tired, just like the people who had taken it for granted. I hadn't planned on coming back, but the phone call that brought me there wasn't one I could ignore. My father had fallen ill. A stroke, mild but enough to shake him. The hospital was only an hour from the coast, and when the nurse told me he kept asking for me, I went. He was smaller than I remembered. Age and regret had a way of shrinking people. His voice was soft when he spoke. "Ethan," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "You came." "How did?" I said quietly. "How are you feeling?" "Like an old fool," he murmured. I should have seen things differently. I didn't say anything. Silence, I'd learned, could speak more truth than anger. He turned his head toward the window. "The house is falling apart." Leela, she tried to keep up, but she mismanaged the trust. "There's nothing left, Ethan. Not for her, not for anyone." That caught me off guard. "Nothing." He shook his head weakly. "She spent most of it trying to impress people who stopped calling once the money ran out. She's lost, Ethan. I failed both of you." For the first time, I didn't feel resentment, only a strange, deep sadness. "You didn't fail me, Dad," I said softly. "You just stopped seeing me." His eyes glistened. "I see you now." He passed away that autumn, quietly, without ceremony. Leela handled the arrangements. What little there were to handle. She didn't speak to me much, except when necessary. Her voice had lost that sharp edge, replaced with exhaustion. When we stood by the shore to scatter his ashes, she finally turned to me, her eyes rimmed red. "I'm sorry," she said, barely above a whisper. "For what? For everything. For being so blind. For thinking I deserved more when I gave less." The wind tugged at her hair, the sea roaring softly behind her. I studied her. The same sister who once mocked me for being the boring one, now hollowed out by consequence. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt the sweet satisfaction of revenge complete. Instead, I felt peace. "You don't have to apologize," I said. "Life did that for you." She laughed through her tears, shaking her head. "You're cruel." "Not cruel," I said. "Just honest. But I don't hate you, Leela. I never did." She blinked, surprised. "Then why?" "Because," I interrupted gently, "sometimes the only way to make people see your worth is to stop giving it away." We stood there for a long while, watching the ashes blend into the waves. The tide pulled them apart, carrying them farther until they disappeared. I thought of my father, of his mistakes, his pride, his love buried deep beneath layers of misunderstanding. After the funeral, I didn't return to the old house again. Instead, I bought my own place by the water, smaller, simpler, and entirely mine. I built it with my own hands, piece by piece, the way I'd once repaired my father's home. Only this time, no one expected it of me. Sometimes, when the tide is low and the sun sets in amber streaks, I walk down to the shore. I think about them. My father, my sister, the life I used to chase. The hurt doesn't sting anymore, it just hums softly, like the sea against the sand. I've learned that peace isn't about being right. It's about letting go of duty, of resentment, of needing to be seen. One evening, Leela visited me. She stood on the porch, quiet, humbled, looking at the home I'd built. "It's beautiful," she said. "It's peaceful," I corrected. She nodded, her eyes glistening. "You stopped paying for the old home, but you built a better one." I smiled faintly. "I stopped paying for their comfort," I said, gazing at the horizon. "Now I pay only for my peace." And as the tide rolled in, I knew it. This was the home the sea had always meant for me.